They say funerals reveal who truly cared. But that day, I learned who truly lied. As the choir hummed softly and a priest read his verses, I saw her, sitting in the front row. She didn't cry. She didn't even look ashamed. But around her neck hung the necklace I gave him, the one he said he lost years ago. My hands went cold, my heartbeat slowed. And in that moment, I realized maybe I hadn't known my husband at all. Because if she had that, what else did she have? Memories? Promises? His love? Every answer I'd buried with him began to claw its way back up. But before I continue, make sure you're subscribed to the Old Folks channel and let me know in the comments where you're watching from. We love to see how far our stories travel. The house felt different the next morning, too quiet, too clean, like it was trying to forget him. Rain still tapped against the windows, slow and deliberate, as if reminding me the world was still moving, even if mine wasn't. I sat at the kitchen table, staring at the untouched cup of tea in front of me. His mug was still in the sink, faint lipstick on the rim, not mine. I traced the edge of the cup with my finger, the image of that woman replaying in my mind. Her calm face. That necklace. The one I chose myself, delicate silver, with a small sapphire at the center. I whispered aloud, why did she have it? But the house, full of memories and secrets, said nothing back. Just the hum of the refrigerator, and the echo of betrayal. I walked upstairs slowly, every creak of the wooden steps sounding louder than usual. His study door was slightly open. I hadn't stepped inside since he passed. The scent of his cologne lingered in the air, mixed with paper and dust. His desk was neat, almost too neat. I opened the top drawer. Bills, receipts, nothing unusual. The second drawer, letters, sealed envelopes, an old pocket watch. But in the third drawer, hidden beneath a stack of insurance papers, I found it, a small jewelry box. It wasn't the same one I'd used for the necklace, but inside, tucked carefully in silk, was a single sapphire earring. The match to the necklace that woman wore. My hand shook. He didn't lose it. He replaced it. And the realization hit me like a knife. He didn't just cheat, he lied in ways I never imagined. Later that evening, I sat by the fireplace, the earring clutched in my hand. Flames flickered across the walls, casting shadows that danced like ghosts. I opened the newspaper that held his obituary, and that's when I saw it. At the bottom of the page, beneath a list of family condolences, was a message. Forever in my heart. L. Just a single letter. My stomach twisted. That woman, she must have been L. I replayed every moment of the funeral in my head, her perfect stillness, her unflinching stare. It wasn't grief. It was possession. As I stared into the fire, the sapphire caught the light, glowing deep blue, like an eye watching me. And I made myself a promise. Tomorrow, I would find her. Morning light crept into the house like an uninvited guest, soft, cold, and colorless. I hadn't slept. The sapphire earring lay on the table beside me, catching the pale glow of dawn. My hands felt stiff, heavy with exhaustion, but my mind was sharp. I went through his drawers again, slower this time, not looking for valuables, but for truth. And there it was, tucked behind an old photo frame, a faded photograph of him smiling beside a woman. Her face was turned slightly, laughing, but I recognized that same necklace immediately. The handwriting on the back read, Paris, 2014. Always us. A part of me wanted to scream, another part wanted to laugh. I had been here, at home, cooking dinners and folding his shirts, while he was promising always to someone else. Outside, the wind picked up, brushing the curtains. The house seemed to breathe with me, slow and uneven. And I thought, if she was in Paris with him, where else had they been? By afternoon, I decided to call his office. My voice was steady, though my heart raced with every ring. Good morning, the receptionist answered cheerfully. Mr. Whitmore's office. This is Mrs. Whitmore, I said. His widow. A pause, then the change in tone. "Oh, Mrs. Whitmore, I'm so sorry for your loss." "Thank you," I said. "I was just sorting through some things. Could you tell me if there was anyone named Lena or Lillian who worked with him recently?" The silence that followed was heavy. Too long. Too careful. Finally, she said, "I'm sorry, ma'am. I don't have that information." But her hesitation told me enough. After hanging up, I stared at the receiver, my hand trembling slightly. There was a name hiding somewhere in his life, a woman known by everyone but me. And for the first time, I wasn't afraid of what I'd find. I was ready. That night, I sat alone at his desk again, the rain tapping gently on the window like a metronome for my thoughts. I reached for his wallet, the one I hadn't been able to throw away yet. Inside were the usual things, his ID, credit cards, old receipts. But one of them stood out, a cafe receipt dated just a month before his death. La Sera Bistro, 2 cappuccinos, 1 chocolate tart. The signature below wasn't his. It was rounded, delicate, feminine. And next to it, a small doodle of a heart. I ran my thumb over the ink, feeling my chest tighten. That same handwriting matched the back of the photograph. L. The name wasn't just a guess anymore. It was real. And I whispered into the quiet room, "Lena." The fire popped behind me, as if the house itself had heard. Tomorrow, I would go there. To La Sera. To where it all began. The next morning, the world outside looked washed clean by rain, but I wasn't fooled. The cafe was just as the receipt described, La Sera Bistro, small and sunlit, with ivy crawling along the walls and the smell of roasted coffee beans in the air. I took a seat near the back, my fingers tracing the cracked wood of the table. The waitress approached, smiling. "Table for one?" "Yes," I said. "But I believe my husband used to come here." "Henry Whitmore." Her smile faded slightly. "Ah, yes. He used to come often." "With someone?" I asked quietly. She hesitated, then nodded. "She still comes sometimes. Sits right there by the window." My eyes followed her finger to a corner table, empty now, except for a single, folded napkin. My stomach turned cold. She was real. When I got home, I couldn't stop replaying it, her table, her presence still lingering in the air. I went through the study again, every drawer, every shelf, desperate for something I'd missed. That's when I found it, a small, leather-bound journal wedged behind a stack of old tax files. His handwriting, elegant, precise. The entries were brief, coded almost, but I understood. "L says she loves the necklace. It suits her. The necklace." He wrote about dinners, secrets, and guilt. But one line stood out, underlined twice. I wish I could tell her the truth, but some truths destroy more than they free. I shut the journal, my heart racing. What truth? And who was her? Me or Lena? That night, I stood before the mirror, studying my face, the lines, the eyes, the exhaustion. Was I the wife, or the stranger in his story? I looked down at my empty neck, remembering how I'd once owned that same necklace before he said it was lost. Now it gleamed on another woman's throat. The air felt heavy, pressing against my chest. I whispered to my reflection, "You lied to me, Henry." But why hide her? Behind me, the curtain stirred gently, as if the house exhaled. Maybe it knew what was coming. Because I wasn't done yet. A week later, I returned to the cemetery. The air smelled of wet earth and wilted flowers. And there, standing at his grave, was her. Lena. The same woman from the funeral, wearing black, her hair loose, her hand resting lightly on the headstone. She didn't cry, she just stood there, silent, like someone visiting not a lover, but a promise. When she turned and saw me, her expression froze. For a heartbeat, neither of us spoke. Then she said softly, "You must be his wife." The way she said it, his wife, made the air shift. Because it sounded like she had been something else entirely. We walked together through the rows of gravestones, our footsteps crunching on gravel. "I'm sorry if I startled you," she said. "You didn't," I lied. "I didn't expect to see you here." I could say the same. She smiled faintly, her voice trembling. "He told me about you. Said you were strong." I stopped walking. "He told you about me?" She nodded. "He said he loved you. Just differently." That word, differently, felt like a knife wrapped in silk. Before I could ask more, her phone rang. She stepped aside, answering quickly, her voice low. But I heard one word that made my heart lurch. "Doctor. Doctor." What did that mean? After she left, I couldn't move. The graveyard was empty again, silent but alive with unanswered questions. I bent down, touching the cold stone. There, beside his name, someone had left a folded note, in neat, feminine handwriting. I opened it. "Rest now. They'll never know." The wind picked up, carrying the paper out of my hand, into the dark. And as I watched it disappear, one thought burned in my mind. What was I never supposed to know? I couldn't shake it off. That night, I climbed into the attic, the one place Henry always told me to avoid because of the dust. Dust, yes, and something else. Under an old trunk, I found a small box tied with twine. Inside were photos, letters, and an ultrasound image. My breath caught. Labeled on the back, Lena, 2016. A child. My husband had a child. The air felt colder, the light dimmer. I sank to the floor, clutching the photo to my chest, trying to remember anything, a late-night call, a trip, an excuse. They had all been there. Hidden in plain sight. There was a letter too, his handwriting again. "If anything happens to me, make sure they're taken care of." Not she. Not her. They. Tears blurred my vision. I had loved a man who lived two lives, one with me, and one he kept safe in the shadows. Was it betrayal? Or guilt? I didn't know. But one thing was certain, Lena had more than just the necklace. She had his truth. I sat there for hours, surrounded by ghosts of my own life. The air was thick, hard to breathe. When I finally stood up, my knees trembled. In that moment, I made a promise, not revenge, not anger. Just clarity. I would face her one last time. Not as a wife left behind, but as a woman who deserved the truth. The next morning, I called the number on the cafe receipt. And a familiar voice answered. "Hello?" It was her. We met again at La Serra. She was already there, her hands wrapped around a cup of tea, eyes tired but calm. For a moment, we just looked at each other, two strangers bound by the same man. "I found the letters," I said quietly. She didn't flinch. "Then you know." "I know enough," I replied. "But not why." She looked down, her voice trembling. "He was sick. I was his doctor." It started with kindness. It wasn't supposed to go further. Her confession hung in the air like smoke. Sick. The word echoed. He'd hidden that from me too. "He didn't want to worry you," she said softly. "He thought he could handle it." Tears stung my eyes. "Handle dying?" She nodded. "He refused treatment at first. Then he came to me." I felt my chest tighten. "And the child?" Her lips quivered. "She's my daughter." "But he helped us, not because of love, but because he felt responsible." "I didn't know you then." Her hands trembled. "He wasn't cruel. Just scared." I stared at her, at the necklace, at her eyes filled with guilt. And suddenly, I realized, maybe he hadn't loved either of us enough. Not to stay. Not to tell. When I stood to leave, she said quietly, "He loved you until the end." I paused, then smiled faintly. "Then why did I have to find out like this?" She didn't answer. Outside, the rain started again, soft, cleansing, inevitable. I walked away without looking back. Some stories didn't need closure. They just needed silence. Weeks later, I took his ashes from the mantle and drove to the coast, the place he always said he wanted to retire. The sky was gray, the waves restless. I stood there alone, the wind tangling my hair, salt on my lips. "I hope you found peace," I whispered. "Because I'm finally finding mine." I opened the urn. The wind took him, scattered him into the sea. And for the first time, I didn't cry. I smiled. Because I wasn't burying him again. I was letting him go. When I turned back toward the road, a small car was parked nearby. Lena stepped out, holding a single white rose. Neither of us spoke. She placed the flower on the sand, beside where the ashes had fallen. Then she looked at me and said softly, "He would have wanted this." I nodded. Maybe he finally gets what he wanted. And then, quietly, we both walked away. 2 lives, finally unchained from one lie. When I got home, I found an envelope slipped under my door. Inside was a short note. "He wrote this for you, but never send it." It was his handwriting again. "If I go first, know that I loved you differently, not less. You were my home. I was just too afraid to stay in it." Tears fell onto the paper. I folded it once, placed it beside my wedding ring, and whispered, "Goodbye." The house felt different now. No tension, no secrets, just the creak of old floors and the soft hum of memory. I started packing his things, not in anger, but in peace. Each photo, each book, each echo of him faded gently. By the time the sun set, I realized I wasn't haunted anymore. I was free. The wind outside carried the faint sound of the ocean. And for the first time in years, I slept without dreams. A week later, a package arrived, no return address. Inside was the necklace. The same sapphire pendant, gleaming softly in the light. Attached was a note, for closure, not forgiveness. I held it in my hand, the metal warm from the sun. Then I placed it in the drawer beside his ring. Both belonged to the same story. A story that had finally ended. Before leaving the house for good, I looked back one last time. Light streamed through the window, dust swirling like gold. This had been a home built on love and silence. Now it was just a house. I locked the door and walked away, my steps steady. The sea breeze carried his scent, faint, familiar, fading. I didn't turn around. Not this time. The church smelled of lilies and rain, soft, suffocating, sacred. Candles flickered along the aisle, their flames bending with every sigh of wind that crept through the heavy doors. The organ played low, almost like a heartbeat, slow and tired. I stood near the casket, my hands trembling though I didn't feel cold. People whispered condolences that sounded rehearsed, empty. My husband's photograph sat on the table beside me, his smile forever frozen, charming, perfect, dishonest. I stared at it, wondering when I stopped recognizing that face. And then, through the murmurs and soft sobs, I felt it, that prickle at the back of my neck. The sense that something wasn't right. Someone was watching me. My eyes drifted across the rows of mourners, faces blurred by tears and candlelight, until they stopped. She sat in the front row. Not family. Not a friend. A woman I'd never seen before. Her black dress shimmered faintly when the light touched it, expensive, elegant, too deliberate for grief. Her gaze wasn't lost or broken. It was steady. Focused. And around her neck hung a silver necklace, the same one I gave my husband on our 10th anniversary. The same one he claimed was lost during a business trip. My pulse quickened. I could almost hear it over the choir's soft humming. She lifted her hand to touch the pendant lightly, and for a brief moment, her eyes met mine. Cold. Knowing. Who was she, and why did she look like she belonged there more than I did? The priest's voice echoed, but I barely heard a word. His prayers blurred into background noise, drowned out by the sound of my heartbeat pounding in my ears. My mind spiraled through memories, trips, late calls, excuses about work dinners. I remembered the scent of unfamiliar perfume on his shirt once, sweet, foreign, forgotten. Every image of him smiling at me now felt like an act. When the service ended, people rose to leave, but I couldn't move. My feet felt rooted to the marble floor. The woman stood up gracefully, smoothing her dress, her eyes never leaving the casket. Then she whispered something under her breath, too soft to catch, and walked out into the rain. For a moment, I wanted to follow her, ask who she was. But my throat locked. Because deep down, I already knew. The sun had begun to sink, spilling golden light through the lace curtains. The house was almost empty now, just a few boxes left, stacked neatly by the door. In the garden, the wind brushed through the dry roses, their petals fallen like whispers from another life. I sat by the window with the last of Henry's letters spread before me. The ink had faded in places, smudged by time, or maybe by tears. His words were careful, like he'd tried to confess without breaking something fragile inside himself. If I go before you, know that everything I left unsaid was never meant to hurt you, only to spare you. My fingers trembled as I folded it closed. Outside, a crow perched on the fence, silent and watchful, as though it had been listening all along. For the first time, I didn't feel anger, only quiet understanding. And yet, a thought lingered like a shadow. Had he spared me, or himself? That evening, I drove back to the coast, the place where I had let his ashes go. The sky was violet now, the horizon fading into mist. The sea was restless, rolling in slow, deep breaths, as if carrying secrets between the waves. I stepped barefoot onto the cold sand. Every step left a faint print, washed away almost instantly, a reminder that nothing we leave behind stays untouched. In my hand, I held the necklace, the same one Lena had returned. For a long moment, I stared at it, the stone catching the last light of dusk. It almost looked alive. Then I threw it into the water. The splash was small, almost tender. But it sounded like an ending. Or maybe, a release. As I watched the ripples fade, I whispered, "You're free now." And so am I. The sea gave no answer. Only a gust of wind brushed against my face, cool and final. When I came home, the house was dark. I didn't turn on the lights. I just sat in the living room, surrounded by shadows, but they didn't feel heavy anymore. They felt human. Familiar. I could almost hear his laughter echo faintly down the hallway, the sound soft and harmless now. A memory, not a wound. I closed my eyes and breathed deeply. The air was warm, alive, full of endings and beginnings. Forgiveness isn't forgetting, it's the moment when pain stops needing an audience. I stood, looking one last time at the family photo on the mantel. Then I smiled. Not because I'd healed, but because I'd finally stopped breaking. And as I turned to leave, the morning light slipped through the curtains, soft, gold, endless, illuminating the empty room that, at last, felt like peace. They say funerals reveal who truly cared. But that day, I learned who truly lied. As the choir hummed softly and the priest read his verses, I saw her, sitting in the front row. She didn't cry. She didn't even look ashamed. But around her neck hung the necklace I gave him, the one he said he lost years ago. My hands went cold, my heartbeat slowed. And in that moment, I realized, maybe I hadn't known my husband at all. Because if she had that, what else did she have? Memories? Promises? His love? Every answer I'd buried with him began to claw its way back up.